The rain pounded against the garage windows as Mike wiped his calloused hands on a rag that had seen better days. Just as he was about to close up shop, headlights cut through the downpour, and a beat-up Honda pulled into his station, steam rising from its hood. Inside sat a teenage girl, mascara streaking down her face as she clutched her steering wheel. Little did Mike know that this simple act of kindness would change both their lives forever. If you've ever wondered whether good deeds still matter in today's world, this story will touch your heart. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to see more real-life stories that restore faith in humanity. Mike Coleman had owned Coleman's Auto Repair for 15 years, ever since he'd scraped together enough savings from working double shifts at the factory to buy the rundown garage on the edge of Millfield. The small town wasn't kind to single fathers with grease-stained fingernails and a high school education, but he'd made it work. His daughter Lily was his world, and at 16, she was growing into a young woman he was immensely proud of, despite the whispers around town about that mechanic's kid. The rain had been relentless all day, matching Mike's mood. The morning had started with 3 cancellations, people who'd rather take their business to the new chain auto shop that had opened across town than trust their vehicles to just a local guy. Their words, not his. The fancy place had television screens in the waiting room and complimentary lattes. Mike had a coffee maker from 2005 and magazines so old they featured flip phones in their advertisements. He was just about to lock up when he saw the car pull in, moving slowly, the right front tire clearly flat. The Honda looked like it had survived at least 2 decades of faithful service, much like his own truck. Mike sighed, glancing at the clock, 7:45 p.m. Lily would be waiting for him to heat up dinner. But something about the slumped shoulders of the driver made him pause. The door opened, and out stepped a girl about Lily's age. Her dark hair was plastered to her face from the rain, and even from a distance, Mike could see she'd been crying. She wore what looked like an expensive dress, now soaked and muddy at the hem. "We're closed," he called out automatically, then immediately regretted it when he saw her face crumple. "Please," she said, her voice barely audible over the drumming rain. "I don't know what to do. I was driving home from prom, and my date," she broke off, fresh tears mixing with raindrops. "He left me at the venue when I wouldn't, you know. Then my tire blew out, and I've been trying to call my mom, but she's not answering, and I don't know how to change a tire, and my phone is almost dead." Mike's heart softened immediately. "Come inside, get dry. I'll take a look." The girl, Emma, she told him, sat awkwardly on the plastic chair in his office area, wrapped in the clean shop towel he'd given her. She looked around at the faded photographs on the wall, mostly of Lily at various ages, and the certificates from local trade schools that Mike had earned over the years. "Is that your daughter?" Emma asked, pointing to a recent photo of Lily at her science fair. "Yeah, that's my Lily. She's about your age. Smart as a whip. Wants to be an engineer." Pride swelled in his voice. "That's cool," Emma said, a small smile breaking through her tears. "I want to study business. My mom runs a tech company." Mike nodded, not really knowing what to say to that. He'd never been good at small talk, especially with teenagers who weren't his own. "Let me check that tire for you." Outside, the situation was worse than he'd thought. The tire wasn't just flat, it had been shredded, likely from hitting a pothole. The rim was damaged too. He'd need to replace both. When he came back in to tell Emma, she was staring at her phone in dismay. "My battery died," she said. "And I don't have my wallet. It's in my date's car." Fresh tears threatened to spill. "I can't pay you." "Don't worry about that now," Mike said gently. "Let's get you home, and we can figure out the rest later." "Where do you live?" "Lakeside Estates," she replied. Mike tried not to react. Lakeside Estates was the gated community on the hill, where houses started at 7 figures. No wonder her dress probably cost more than his monthly mortgage payment. "I'll fix your car tomorrow," he said. "For now, let me drive you home." You can call your mom from my phone. Emma's call went to voicemail again. She's probably in a meeting, she explained, though it was nearly 9 p.m. She's always working. As Mike drove Emma to Lakeside Estates in his rusted pickup truck, he couldn't help but notice how the houses grew larger and more imposing the closer they got. At the security gate, the guard gave his truck a suspicious once-over before Emma explained the situation. "That's Ms. Reynolds' daughter," the guard said into his radio, eyeing Mike with distrust. "She's with some mechanic." Mike felt his face flush with embarrassment. He'd experienced this kind of judgment before, the assumption that because his hands were permanently stained with engine grease and his clothes came from discount stores, he was somehow less than. Less trustworthy. Less worthy of respect. When they pulled up to a sprawling modern mansion with floor-to-ceiling windows, Mike's suspicions were confirmed. This girl came from money. Serious money. "Thanks for helping me," Emma said sincerely as she got out. "Most people wouldn't have stayed open." "It's no problem," Mike replied. "I'll have your car fixed by tomorrow afternoon. You can come by the shop to pick it up." As he drove away, he couldn't help but wonder what it must be like to live in a house like that. To not have to count every penny or worry about making rent. To not have people look at you like you were somehow deficient because you worked with your hands. The next morning, Mike opened the shop early to work on Emma's car. The tire was a complete loss, and the rim would need to be replaced. It wasn't going to be cheap, but he decided to charge her only for the parts. Something about the girl's tear-stained face and the way she'd been abandoned by both her date and, it seemed, her mother, had struck a chord with him. Around noon, the bell above the door jingled, and Mike looked up from under the hood of a Subaru to see three young men in Letterman jackets sauntering in. He recognized one of them as Jason Mercer, the son of the town councilman and star quarterback of Millfield High. "Hey, old man," Jason called out, his tone immediately setting Mike's teeth on edge. "Heard you rescued a damsel in distress last night." Mike straightened, wiping his hands on his coveralls. "Can I help you boys with something?" Jason smirked, looking around the shop with exaggerated disdain. "Just wanted to see where Emma's car ended up." "That's my girlfriend you drove home." "Ex-girlfriend," one of the other boys corrected with a snicker. "After she went all prude on you." Mike felt a surge of anger. "I think you should leave." "Or what?" Jason stepped closer, towering over Mike by several inches. At 18, the boy was already built like a linebacker. "You gonna make me, grease monkey? Does the school know you're letting your daughter hang out with that weird Chinese kid? What are they, dating or something?" The casual cruelty and racism made Mike's blood boil. Lily's best friend, Wei, was Korean American and one of the kindest kids Mike had ever met. The two were inseparable, working on robotics projects together after school. "Get out of my shop," Mike said, his voice dangerously quiet. "Now." Jason laughed, but something in Mike's expression must have given him pause. "Whatever. Just tell Emma to stop ignoring my texts. And good luck getting paid. Her mom's a total ice queen. Probably won't even remember her daughter had car trouble." After they left, Mike stood there, hands shaking with suppressed rage. People like Jason and his friends had been looking down on people like him his whole life. In high school, it had been the rich kids who mocked his second-hand clothes. As an adult, it was customers who questioned his prices or expertise because he didn't have a fancy degree hanging on his wall. By late afternoon, Emma's car was ready. Mike had found a rim that matched and installed a new tire. He'd also checked her fluids and fixed a loose belt he'd noticed while working. The total came to just under $300, but he'd decided to charge her only $150. At 4:30, just as he was wondering if she'd forgotten, a sleek black Tesla pulled into the lot. Mike watched as a woman emerged, tall, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, with the same dark hair as Emma, though cut in a sharp bob that framed a face that looked like it rarely smiled. Emma followed behind her, looking uncomfortable. Mr. Coleman, the woman asked as she entered, her voice crisp and professional. I'm Catherine Reynolds, Emma's mother. I understand you helped my daughter last night. Mike wiped his hands before extending one. Mike Coleman. And it was no trouble, really. Catherine looked at his hand for a moment before shaking it briefly. Emma tells me you stayed open late and drove her home. That was kind of you. There was something in her tone that suggested she was surprised by this kindness, as if she'd expected something else entirely. Your daughter's car is ready, Mike said, gesturing to the Honda. I replaced the tire and rim, and fixed a belt that was about to go. Total comes to $150. Catherine raised an eyebrow. That seems low for a rim and tire. Mike shrugged. It's what it cost. Catherine studied him for a moment, then reached into her purse and pulled out a checkbook. Emma says you have a daughter about her age. Lily. She's 16. And you run this place alone? Mike nodded, unsure where this was going. Have for 15 years. Catherine wrote out a check and handed it to him. When Mike looked down, he saw she'd written it for $500. Ms. Reynolds, this is too much. It's Ms. Kincaid professionally, but Catherine is fine, she interrupted. And no, it's not too much. You helped my daughter when she needed it, stayed open late, and drove her home safely. That's worth more than $150. There was something in her eyes, a flicker of emotion quickly suppressed, that made Mike wonder about her story. Before he could respond, she continued. Emma mentioned that your daughter is interested in engineering? Yes, she wants to study mechanical engineering. She's already building robots with her friend Wei. For the first time, Catherine's expression softened slightly. I started Kincaid Tech 20 years ago. We're always looking for bright young women interested in STEM. We have a summer internship program for high school students. Perhaps Lily would be interested? Mike was stunned. Kincaid Tech was one of the largest technology companies in the state. An internship there would be a dream opportunity for Lily. That's very generous, he managed. It's not generosity, it's practical, Catherine replied. We need more women in tech. Have her send her application to my office directly. She handed him a business card with her personal email handwritten on the back. As they were leaving, Emma turned back. Thanks again, Mr. Coleman. You really saved me last night. Mike smiled. Anytime, Emma. And tell that boy if he bothers you again, he'll have to answer to me. Emma looked surprised, then grateful. I will. After they left, Mike stood looking at the check and business card in his hand, feeling like something significant had just happened, though he couldn't quite put his finger on what. The next morning, Mike was surprised to see Catherine's Tesla pull into his lot again. This time, she was alone. Did Emma's car have another problem? He asked as she entered. Catherine shook her head. No, I came to talk to you. She looked around the shop, taking in the worn but meticulously organized tools, the clean floor despite the nature of the work done there. You run a good business here. I try to, Mike said, confused by her presence. I did some research on you last night, she said, and Mike felt a flicker of annoyance. Of course she had. People like her always thought they had the right to pry into others' lives. Mike Coleman. Graduated Millfield High in 2001. Worked at the factory until it closed in 2008. Opened this place the same year. Sole guardian to Lily Coleman since she was 2, when your wife left. She stated these facts without judgment, just information gathered. That about sums it up, Mike said stiffly. What it doesn't tell me is that you're honest, hardworking, and kind enough to help a stranded teenager in the rain. Catherine's voice had lost some of its crisp professionalism. Do you know what Emma told me last night? That you're the first adult man who's ever treated her with respect without wanting something in return. Mike didn't know what to say to that. I've been thinking about expanding Kincaid Tech's community outreach, Catherine continued. We have a fleet of company vehicles that need regular maintenance. Currently, we contract with a service in the city, but it would make more sense to work with someone local. Mike's mind raced. A contract like that could secure his business for years. I'm not offering this because you helped Emma, Catherine clarified, as if reading his thoughts. I'm offering because I've looked at your reviews online. You're good at what you do, you're fair with pricing, and you're already here in Millfield where we're based. It makes business sense. I'd need to hire help, Mike said, already calculating what this would mean. I would expect so. Catherine handed him a folder. Here's our standard contract for service providers. Look it over, make any changes you think are necessary, and let me know. As Mike took the folder, their fingers brushed, and for a moment, something passed between them, a recognition, perhaps, of two people who had built lives through sheer determination and hard work. Thank you, Mike said sincerely. This is a big opportunity. Catherine nodded, then hesitated. There's one more thing. Emma mentioned that your daughter and her friend are building robots? Yes, they're entering the state competition next month. I'd like to see their work sometime. Perhaps they could come to the Kincaid Tech Labs. We have equipment they might find useful. Mike smiled. Lily would love that. She talks about Kincaid Tech all the time. For the first time, Catherine smiled back, a real smile that transformed her face. It's settled then. And perhaps, we could discuss it over dinner sometime? Mike blinked, caught off guard. Dinner? Yes, dinner. It's a meal people sometimes share in the evening, Catherine said, a hint of humor in her voice. Unless you're not interested? No, I mean, yes, I'm interested, Mike stammered, feeling suddenly like a teenager again. Dinner would be nice. As Catherine left, promising to call him later to arrange details, Mike stood in the middle of his shop, the contract in his hand, feeling like his life had just taken an unexpected turn. All because he'd stayed open late one rainy night to help a stranded teenager. 6 months later, Coleman's Auto Repair had expanded to include 3 new employees. The contract with Kincaid Tech had led to other corporate accounts, and for the first time in years, Mike wasn't worrying about making ends meet. Lily had completed her summer internship at Kincaid Tech and was now mentoring younger girls interested in robotics, with full support from Catherine, who had become a regular presence in their lives. As for Mike and Catherine, they were taking things slowly, 2 single parents with complicated lives finding unexpected common ground. She'd taught him about wine and art, he'd taught her how to change her own oil and the satisfaction of fixing something with your hands. They were different in many ways, but similar in the ones that mattered, both fiercely protective of their children, both dedicated to their work, both carrying scars from the past that had made them stronger. And Emma? She'd started her senior year with newfound confidence, having ended things permanently with Jason after he'd continued to harass her. She'd found an unexpected friend in Lily, despite their different backgrounds. The 2 girls had more in common than anyone might have guessed, both raised by single parents who worked too hard, both determined to forge their own paths in the world. One evening, as they all sat around the dinner table in Mike's modest home, a regular occurrence now, Emma raised her glass of soda in a toast. To flat tires, she said with a grin. Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best changes. Mike looked around the table at these people who had unexpectedly become part of his life, Catherine with her brilliant mind and slowly thawing reserve, Emma, finding her voice and strength, Lily, blossoming with new opportunities and friendships, even Wei, who